Matthew 10:27, Jesus tells the apostles, "What I say to you in the darkness, speak in the light. What you hear whispered, proclaim on the housetops." Now there are some challenging implications in that one verse that we need to explore, and some assumptions that it seems Jesus has made about us that we may not share. So let's dive into it. It seems pretty clear that Jesus is telling the apostles that there will be things communicated to them privately by Jesus that he'll want them to share. Now, he may be referring to his earthly ministry, and I'm sure Jesus had private conversations with the apostles as they walked from town to town. I mean, that's something that happens on a long walk or a hike. It's not uncommon for different combinations of people to gather and for some very important, even intimate conversation to take place. But I'm not sure this is the type of conversation that Jesus is referring to. It seems more likely that he's referring to what will take place after his earthly ministry, through the Holy Spirit. Now remember, when asked how they should pray, Jesus tells the apostles in Matthew chapter 6 to go to an inner room and to shut the door. Now this sounds very much like the context from which Jesus is now telling the apostles to speak. The implication for us seems clear. Jesus speaks in prayer through the Holy Spirit, and some of what he's saying he wants us to share. Now that leads to the second important assumption. If you're a follower of Jesus, you're praying. I mean, it seems obvious, doesn't it? Christians should be people characterized by prayer. It should permeate us. And far from taking away from our lives, it should be the fuel that drives us. We should continuously be seeking an intimate, meaningful connection to the Lord. As I said, it seems obvious. I shouldn't even have to say it. However, if we're honest, despite its obviousness, far too often we can go all day, even weeks, without making a specific time to dedicate to prayer. And then we wonder why we feel so disconnected and purposeless. We habitually ignore something as vital to our life as food, and we wonder why we're hungry. Now, how do I know that this is a nearly universal problem in the church today? Well, just step back and look at the state of the church. And no, I'm not talking about the church with a capital C. I'm talking about the people of God, you and me. How could a people drenched in prayer look so similar to a culture that we almost universally agree is getting further and further away from the Lord every day? And does that give you pause? It should. Ask yourself a simple question. What about my life, other than my religious affiliation and perhaps an hour on Sunday, is any different than any of my secular neighbors? Now, if our lives were dependent on prayer, they would be inexplicable apart from prayer. And that brings me to the third assumption. Through prayer, we should be intimate with the Lord. Now, I know, I've said the word intimate multiple times already, but bear with me. What does it mean? And to my mind, you can't be intimate with someone you don't trust. Intimacy implies a laying bare of oneself. We even use the word to describe a healthy marital relationship. We use the term to describe our closest friendships. Why? Because it's only with people we trust the most that we share the deepest parts of ourselves. We're called to intimate, trusting prayer in which we're close with God, and more mind-blowingly, He's intimate with us. Now, how do I know that we're called to this type of relationship with the Lord? Well, in this passage, it seems clear that God is going to ask those who follow Him to say hard things that will frighten them and that will bring the condemnation of the culture down upon them. And do not be afraid of those who will kill the body, but cannot kill the soul. Rather, be afraid of the one who can destroy both the soul and the body in Gehenna. Now, there's no way that anyone's going out and saying those things, those hard things that are going to make people so angry that they'll threaten and even take their lives unless they trust the person who sent them. Intimacy and trust are implied. So where does that leave us? Well, this verse makes three significant assumptions. 1, God is speaking. 2, we're praying. And 3, our prayer is intimate. Of those three assumptions, I can only say for certain that one of those things is actually happening. God is speaking. The other two are dependent on us. Are we listening? Are we making time for the Lord in a real, practical way? Are we taking down our guard before the Lord and entering honestly into a relationship, bearing ourselves before Him and inviting Him to bring His life to us? One of these things is true without us doing anything. The other two could be true in almost an instant. Right now, you can decide to give a relationship with the Lord priority. Right now, you can choose to set a regular time of prayer, to arrange an appointment with God, as Father Michael Scanlon puts it. In the gospel, it seems Jesus is assuming that this is what his followers will do. And I want his assumptions about me to be true.